you hear most of the review? Sounds good.
Okay.
Where do you hear most of the, all right, I'll probably just ask him.
Sure.
All right, and we're rolling. We're live. All right, guys, so we have Rolfe and my boy Zach here.
Hey.
Zach and I went to college together in New York.
Oh, cool.
So the fun fact as we go along the way.
I'm from New York too.
All right, yeah, I was trying to make out your hat. At first, every hat I see, I look to see if it's a Yankee hat.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Yankee hat.
No.
They lost last night. But where in New York?
I grew up in Westchester, just the suburbs of by Yonkers and Scarsdale.
Yeah, I played soccer, so I traveled to play against Iona and just little teams up there. So
Sure.
So, and you made your way to LA.
Then I moved to LA back in 1994. So I've been here for a
It's
while.
right around the corner.
Yeah.
Ain't too bad. You're just like the rest of us.
Right.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, we were talking about The Art of Dead, and that's the movie you directed, Rolfe. Zach, you acted in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting to see it because I'm waiting on my brother to come, and we just watch horror films together. So I'm a big horror films fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking it in. He told me about it.
Cool.
Gave him big congrats on Instagram, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But Rolfe, tell me a little bit about directing this film per se, and then I'll ask you some follow-up questions about directing in general.
Sure. Well, this project started with I worked with two producers in Vegas called the Mahal brothers, Michael and Sonny Mahal, and we'd worked for the last couple of years, and I did a movie with them called Bus Party to Hell, which was a really over-the-top horror comedy splatter, like Sam Raimi Splatterfest. And then they wanted to do another horror film. We pitched some ideas back and forth. They finally threw out an idea about an art collector who buys these paintings that start to kill him and his family. And I thought that was intriguing because I was a big fan of an old television show, Rob Serling's The Night Gallery.
Okay.
It's what he did after The Twilight Zone. That doesn't have a big reputation, but it was a cool little show and about paintings and stuff. So I said, oh, that's interesting. So I can kind of do homage to some of that stuff. So they gave me the freedom. I wrote the screenplay, and they were happy with it. And then they are pretty amazing at raising money and doing stuff on Indiegogo and getting the community behind it. So they were able to put the financing together, and then we went into production about a year and a half ago, or something like that.
Yeah. Are they like film financiers, or are they just
They're producers. They're
based in
producers.
Vegas?
They're based in Vegas, yeah,
Cool.
and they have the Vegas community kind of behind them. So
Sick.
they've been doing, this is their, I think, fourth movie, and now they've done two more since then that they're in production right now on another film.
Yeah.
But they met me through Facebook. They
Sick.
saw a teen comedy I directed years
Right.
ago, and they wanted to do a teen comedy, and they
Right.
said, we saw your movie, Respect, and they said, we want you to write this for us. And then we went back and forth, and finally I wrote this, silly college comedy that Michael directed, and then after that they brought me on to write and direct the next one and this one.
Oh wow.
So the making of this went really well. It was a slightly bigger budget. I really wanted to do a straighter horror film. There's still a sense of fun and irony and some humor in it, but it is much more of an unusual storyline, and I like that, something different that you haven't seen all the time.
Yeah.
So we did casting. We did one day of casting, one day in LA and one day in Vegas, and the Mahals were in charge of the Vegas auditions, and I, with Esther Goodstein, who was a jack of all trades on the film and a producer as well, and Nicholas George, one of the producers, supervised the LA casting session, and the Mahals found people and videotaped them in Vegas. I found people in LA, and then we sort of compared notes and went back and forth and found our cast from that.
Did you guys have any idea in mind who you wanted to be the leads, like before it started?
I had a few actors that I had worked with that I knew.
Okay.
I was Robert Donovan, who plays the priest, Father Mendel.
Oh my God, he loves that priest role.
He's great. I've worked with him since '96. This was our 20-something film together, and he's always great. He's a wonderful character actor, and he can do anything, comedy, seriousness.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling he'd be really good for this role. The funny thing is, the Mahals also had somebody who I had worked with in Bus Party, who's in the movie. He plays one of the people who's supposed to deliver the paintings,
Right.
Johnny Molinaro. And they wanted him for the priest, and I like John, but I felt his look was not quite. He kind of looks more like a biker dude than a priest.
Right.
So we made him another role, but Robert finally got the role. I had written scripts that an actress named Jessica Morris, who plays Zach's stepmother in the movie,
Right.
and she's great. She's done tons of movies.
Yeah.
And I never directed her before, but I thought she'd be great for that role, so I wanted to bring her in, and she wound up getting the part. And Alex Reinhardt, who was also in my last film, The Black Room, I thought she might be very good for the part of Kim, who plays Zach's girlfriend in the film. She came in, did a great audition. The Mahals loved her. And then the last one was Lucas Hassel, who was my lead in The Black Room as well, the film I did before this with Natasha Henstridge and Lynn Shay, that's on Netflix now. And I knew he'd be good. There were two roles we were considering him for: the father, Dylan, or the painter, the artist, Dorian Wilde. And he liked both roles, but he really wanted to play the father more. I think he thought he could do more with that. The Mahals really loved him in Black Room, so we went back and forth on that. The biggest issue was he SAG, and we weren't sure for a while if we were going to be able to go SAG or not with this film, so we didn't know if we could get him or not. And then we wound up going SAG, and it all worked out.
Oh,
so
sick,
it was
nice.
great. Yeah.
Right, and Zach, in your process of being casted in this film, tell me about your process and how it went along.
Well, at the time, I wasn't doing many auditions because there's not that many in Vegas, right? But I heard that the Mahals had another movie coming out after Buzz Party to Hell. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it because it was like, the first one was kind of a slasher. I didn't know if there was going to be anything for me. Then an actor in my class told me about it and told me about the role of this kid that was, same age pretty much, and aspiring artist, which is what I was trying to be as myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once I saw the script and saw the two sides from, boy next door to this possessed aspiring artist filled with wrath, I was like, oh, this is mine. And I went in there, turned Mr. Mahal's head around. And
How did you meet Mr. Mahal?
At the audition room, honestly.
Right.
He was there, and
So you applied via, how did you apply?
it was open calls.
Oh, sick.
yeah,
Okay.
it was open calls on Facebook, and just showed up there and did what I did.
In Vegas, how many actors are go to? I can't imagine if they did an open call in Los Angeles. Like that would be at least a week long.
It was crazy. Well, they did put out, and that's the thing. The Mahals, it's a different process because the LA film scene is different from Vegas, and they did that here too. Is they threw out on Facebook to do open calls, and we're trying to schedule people, and I know Esther and I were like, no, this is not how you do it. You can't believe that. But we did have from that some people coming to audition as well that were good, but it was like I only had one day, which was crazy. So it was it's not always the proper way to do it, but if the end result works, hey, whatever.
And how many submissions was it? It was like 6,000 or
There were
something?
tons of submissions.
Yeah, like
I bet for guys or probably women submit. I mean, like, okay, like, I could be a Zach if I cut my hair. Like, I bet you hear it all in Los Angeles in that type of market. But just the whole casting process, just run me through it pretty quick.
For my audition.
Yeah, just for audition.
So yeah, I mean, I just connected with the character as an aspiring artist and someone who wants to do something with himself. And for me, that was just like, I just tagged the Dorian Wilde, which is the painter, and aspiring to be him and wanting to be, and just using that fire within you to kind of build that wrath. So for me, I just kind of like broke it down for a day, went in there, and I gave it my all. Like I left nothing on the table.
Were you in the room too?
No, that was what was scary. It was because I wasn't, because we were really doing the same weekend. They were in Vegas and I was in LA. And we originally talked about callbacks, which is usually what you do when you whittle it down. You do callbacks, but they decided the whole producer didn't want callbacks. And I mean, the actors who I auditioned and I worked with and I was comfortable with, but there were a few in Vegas like Zach that I had never met, and I just saw the tape. And it's like, well, okay, the audition was good, but you want to see if they take direction. I mean, I know a lot of people do electronic audition casting, which is fine for the first round, but I think it's very dangerous just to go by that and not actually like see if they can take direction and like, okay, change it up, take the notes. And I wasn't allowed to do that with a few like Zach and Danny Tesla, who played Dorian in Vegas. So that was sort of like rolling the dice and hoping, because I didn't meet Zach until we actually did the pre-production table read in California for the film,
which I was surprised about too.
Yeah, I mean, I like Alex. I knew I'd worked with her; she was great, and I knew they would look well together as a boyfriend girlfriend, which is important. But you don't know, will the chemistry be there? Will they actually? It's like it doesn't. And it's very important in this movie. Love has a big part of this film, especially with their characters, and you need to get that across in the film, because if you don't buy the relationship, you're not going to buy the film.
Right.
Problem I have with 50 Shades of Grey. But anyway, so
that was the casting process for this. Zach gets casted, and as a director, you have all these actors together, and you have everything played out in your mind. How much of what played out in your mind played out from the first table read to your shooting date?
It was pretty good. I'm very big in pre-production, so I like to rehearse. And when I got to Vegas before we started shooting, I was able to get the whole cast to the location where we were the main house. And while we were doing wardrobe fitting at the same time, I was literally going through the whole movie with the actors to every room, and blocking it and working it out and discussing the whole thing. I do very detailed shot lists, so I know exactly what I want. And I had worked. The big thing was Michael Sue, who was our brilliant cinematographer on this film. I'd worked with on Party Bus, and we had time to prepare and discuss the visual feel of the movie. Because this movie, it's all about artistry and painters, and I'm like, it needs to be colorful, and we need the whole movie should look like a painting. There's a very stylized approach to the film on purpose, which was the opposite of Party Bus, because that was just winging it, the seat of our pants. But this one, the kind of feel I wanted really had to work itself out. So I like to give the actors the freedom to discover their characters. I've always done an exercise, and I'm sure I told you too, is that I want all the cast to write their own bios. I mean, you have the script, you know what's there, but create your own. Where did you come from? Where did you go to school? What's your relationship? Because even if it's not in the movie, it'll answer a lot of questions for you, and will help give you a full dimensional, three-dimensional character. And I think that's a great help for all actors. I've also done sometimes on assignment. I didn't do it on this one, but when I've worked with actors who haven't done a lot before, because exactly this was one of your first.
This was my first feature.
Sometimes an actor can get a lot of times in their own head, because they're so concentrated on their words and their part, but so much of acting is reacting. So I sometimes like to mix it up and make the actors play different roles to jump the other part, because that forces you to listen to your other performer. So it puts you in the scene versus getting too much like, what do I say next? What do I do next? It's so locked into it. So even though there's a good guideline and game plan to the movie, I do like those sparks of magic that happen. And on this film, it happened multiple times too. There were little things you find.
That's a Rolfe Kanefsky style.
To let the actors be collaborators in the film.
Were you an actor?
When I first started, I wanted to be a clown when I was like 4 years old, and then I liked comedy, so I was a comedian. And then I went to school. I went to HB Studios in New York City for acting, and used Dan for the performing arts. So I did start acting and doing plays in high school and things like that. But I was in some really bad productions, and the problem as an actor is that you have no control over the final product. You can do a great job, but if they edit it wrong, or something doesn't work, the final result.
Or they cut you.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So I was like, if you're gonna put this much work into something, I want it to be good. So that's when I kind of moved away from acting more into the directing stage. I was always writing, but I became much more of the puppeteer on that kind of stuff. But it's great practice, and being an actor and doing improv and all that stuff is a great way to, so you can talk with actors and you can write dialogue that is sayable, because rather than, it's like, it feels like normal conversation. I've never had actors complain about that. It feels natural to them. And I always say to make it their own. If you have to tweak a word or two, I'm not Aaron Sorkin or David Mamet, where you have to put every pause and every,
So piggyback off of what Rolfe was saying, what was your experience like working with Rolfe in pre?
Rolfe was awesome, especially for me, since it was my first one. I was definitely nervous, what to expect. It was my first big production.
What was your first nervous moment? Like, what do you remember your first
it was really rocking. First day of shooting, because I was just just trying to figure out where I should be, don't stand in the way, you know, but be ready at the same time, and I just know what to expect. So once we shot the first scene, I think was on the balcony, right?
Yeah.
That kind of just put me at ease. You know, we had a good scene, practiced it a couple times before we went out there. We did it, and then once that all worked out, we did it. I just kind of whole weight kind of lifted for me. I was like, oh, all right, we got that out of the way.
And there was a trick to that, which I
know,
picked
yeah.
up on. Yes,
Yeah.
The first scene that we shot with Zach is when he's introducing Kim, his girlfriend, to his parents for the first time.
Right.
So he's supposed to be nervous and uncomfortable. So I used that in that first scene. I said, let's start with that scene to get, because he feels that way, so it'll feel natural. And yeah.
And I knew that too. Just going like, well, I'm just gonna use this that I have
Yeah.
inside me and just like let it go and just see what happens. And it worked out well.
So after that first scene, you were cool, you were calm.
Yeah.
Were you ever like reaching to remember lines? I know a lot of actors, like if you haven't done a feature film or you have a big lead or anything, you're in your head from day one, from the jump, and a lot of times it's trying to remember the lines and then put it into the character and do what the director tells me.
Yeah.
What was being calm for you? What was that process like after being calm?
After being calm, I mean, it was just listening. I think for me, when we're doing our scenes, that's the only way I feel like I can remember the line. Because I'm not good at memorizing lines or lyrics. You tell me a song, I'm like, I don't know, but I hear it and go with it, then I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, I cannot do any song a cappella, so yeah, it would never work. But yeah, so it's just listening and what would you say? Yeah, I guess just listening. Yeah, that's it.
And there's a great scene in the movie where Zach meets Dorian Wilde in his own world at one point, and Zach has no dialogue in the whole scene. It's pretty much a huge monologue. It's a very theatrical sequence in a lot of ways, and
love that scene.
But it's a wonderful scene because Zach is just as powerful in the scene without one line of dialogue by all of the reactions to what he's watching and listening to around, Danny Tesla playing Dorian. So there's a great example of watching an actor who, without saying a word, can be as good or better or steal a scene. That's why, there's some, when actors start up, they get a script and they basically go through the script and see how many lines they have, and it's like you're doing it wrong. Like it's not about the lines. Like look how much screen time you have, and let's figure out what you can do with a little bit, and you might be able to steal everything from that. I always go back to the famous. I love the movie Beverly Hills Cop with Eddie Murphy. Yeah. Do you remember the scene in the art gallery with Bronson Pinchot?
Well, yeah.
And he's in two little scenes of that movie, and he walked away with. And Eddie Murphy loved him. It was like it's funny.
I don't remember him being. I remember that's they were in that location.
That little scene. He's playing this sort of flamboyant gay art thing, and he's like, he did the voice, the whole mannerism, but he's hysterical in the scene. Yeah. And then he let him have that scene, and everyone talked about him, and that sort of put him on the map. So again, no such thing as small actors, small roles.
Yeah. Well, from the cover of the DVD, I see Tara Reid in there. Small actor, small roles. She was a household name before. How did she get into this film? What is the direction of it? I don't want to sell it out. I don't want to sell it out for me.
Tara Reid, our two name actors in the movie were Tara Reid and Richard Grieco. Tara, the Mahals reached out to on Party Bus, and she had a cameo in that movie as well, and she was fun and she did a good job, so they wanted to keep her along on this one. There was only one role that really made sense, which is the art gallery owner for the film. Totally different role from Party Bus, but they had already known her manager and known her, so they brought her on board for. She's scattered throughout the film, but it really was shot in one long day with her. And Richard Grieco, they looked around, they wanted another name in there too, and they were able to reach out to him. He's an artist as well as an actor, and he's been around from 21 Jump Street and the movies Mobsters and It Looks to Kill and Booker and all that stuff. And he loved the script, and he really is the opening of the film, and then he pops up a little bit, but he's got the whole beginning of the movie. So both of the actors, liked the material and came in, and I didn't need to work too much with Tara because she kind of knew what she was doing. It was the first day of the shoot. which was difficult because there was a lot to be shot at the art gallery. We had lots of extras and there was a lot of dialogue, and so she had to get through all that stuff. But she comes off well in the final version of the movie.
Nice.
And Richard came in, I remember him, and that was actually the last day we shot, even though that's the opening of the film. Nothing's in order. And he liked the role, but I think he flew in, he was really tired when he arrived, and you know, his energy just wasn't there yet. And I think, you know, they both have done a lot of, you know, they had their bigger movies and now they do a lot of independent films, and depending on the budgets and the things, you can see if they're really into it or not, you know. And Richard liked it, but he wasn't giving it his all yet. So I did a lot of takes with him. And when he saw what we were doing with the camera and what we were doing with it, and he realized what I was trying to do, he sort of came up to it, and, you know, I just got him to that emotional level that I needed him to do, and he does a great job in the film. I told him, I said, this opening is almost like a 5-minute Twilight Zone episode starring you, and it's all about you.
Yeah.
And when he realized that, I said, yeah, it either makes or doesn't make from your performance. And, and he added a lot too, and yeah, I thought it turned out great.
It really sets the tone.
Sets the tone of the movie, yeah.
See, all the suspense to watch this movie now. Like, you just give like a lot of wisdom and knowledge just to all this community. I'm just like in awe listening to this.
Sure.
Zach, how many days did you shoot? Do you remember how many days you shot?
I think a total of 18 days.
You're on almost the whole film.
Yeah. It was 2 weeks for sure of the main shooting, and then we had a couple things that we had to do, like the final, or the scene with Dorian Gray in his world, which is
that was the one pickup we hadn't done from the first production. It was when we went into, I mean, this was it wasn't, we didn't have no budget, but it was a low budget film, and it was very ambitious. When you see the amount of, because also all the effects, almost, I think 95% of the effects are practical.
Yeah.
Including creatures and makeup and blood. I mean, I like to do it in camera. It's not all CGI, so you really, and we hired a great makeup person who I'd worked with before, effects person, Vincent Cassini, who's been on Requiem for a Dream and Last of the Mohicans, and he's done all the Kevin Smith movies. He's a big professional.
Which is the beauty of this film, that everything's practical.
Yeah.
It's all practical. So it takes time to do that. So when I wrote the script, I said the shooting schedule should be about 18 days. And the Mahals were like, well, let's do it in 15. I'm like, I'll try to do it in 15, but it really is 18 days. They thought it was going to be a much simpler film than Party Bus, because Party Bus was in the desert, but it was all in one bus in one location. This one is all over the place over a period of days with lots of blood, with crazy locations too, and recreations and pool parties, and I mean it's much bigger. But they thought, well, we're in houses, so it's a lot easier to do the film. It's like, no. And then they realized, oh yeah, it's not easy to do the movie.
Where was the location?
It was Vegas. We shot all around Vegas.
Cool.
Found great locations in Vegas.
You were living in Vegas then?
I was living in Vegas too, so that was kind of cool. My first feature. With Tara Reid, Richard Grieco's in it too. Like, you know, I felt cool. I was in Vegas, so.
Yeah, living our dream.
And my car made the movie too.
Yes.
I remember I did a TV show in New York, and my car made the movie, and I was like, yes. I was like, yeah, that's
like a proud father, right?
You're a proud father. Charger, man. I had a Charger. It was a cop show. Anyway.
Yes.
So after the last day of this movie, what was the feeling after? Because it's now out of your hands, out of your control. Are you anxious about, or you just like leave it and then you move on?
Well, I mean, I was definitely tired. Because if we were shooting, I mean, we were getting maybe 5 hours at best to sleep in between days. Just because the actors and I would be so excited after a day of shooting, and we were talking about it, you know, and then we realized, oh, we gotta be on set in like 5 hours, and we haven't slept yet.
Wow.
So we were doing that a lot. And then, but finally when it was done, I just like went home and just slept for a bit, and kind of just, I don't know what you want to call it, shed that, you know, the character off, I guess, in a way. But I was very, you know, also sad that we had to leave because we became like such a family at the time. So, but I kind of just slept it off, and then had to deal with life from there, and then realized
life after a feature film, right?
Well, yeah.
How on a personal note, how did you bounce back? You know, after take that time off and you start back looking. You know, I know the ground. Me and you, like we sat down, we had coffee shop.
Yeah.
Now in your career now, so talk to me about this film, and does it give you momentum? Does it give you like what does it give?
Well,
you?
it made me move to LA.
Right.
I had a room that opened up that my buddy's been trying to get me down here, and he said, "Hey, I have another room opening up next month," and I told him, "Let me sleep on it." And next day, and this was in the middle of shooting, like maybe 4th, 5th day, I think, and I told him like, "I'm gonna take it because I'm not losing this opportunity." And that was like, once I knew that was like the momentum to get out here and like to actually start going to classes and talking to people, networking, with you, my buddy Chris, now with Amy and everything. So yeah, that was a huge jump for me to finally do it, and I was nervous. Really nervous, but it worked out. I'm still here.
Yeah, and Rolfe, for you, I mean, I know you say you work with. I wanna pull back on. You work with actors, and you feel comfortable with actors you worked with in the past. Is that something across the directors community? Is that something that happens a lot? You work with a lot of actors they book actors that you worked with before?
Well, I like to, in old Hollywood, people had a team of actors and crew people that you worked with, and then if you get along well, it's good to work with the same people. You don't want to make the same movie over and over again, but you have a group like with Robert Donovan and a few people that I've worked with many, many times, So you find the ones that are right. You can't always work with everyone you want to every movie because it just doesn't work out that way. But you try to make a little community out of it, and you stay in touch if you can. And it's a hard thing because you become a very closely knit family for those 3-4 weeks that you're shooting a movie, and then for the director, at least for me, because I'm very hands on, I became post production supervisor on the film, so I was involved during the entire edit. I was there for every day of editing, and then the music and sound effects and the mixing, and so I'm on the film. And that's the thing that when I first talked to the Mahals, as a director, they're like, "Well, we just come in for 2 weeks and then we pay you for that." And say, "No, the director's gonna be on the movie for like a year." For a real movie, you're on the movie. You have to spend the time to do it. There's some directors who just shoot it and then walk away and they let the post people finish the film. But if you're making your movie, you're there. Scorsese is there doing his films. Spielberg makes his films. So I'm one of those kind of directors. So I spend the time and want to make sure everything is just right.
He was even there for the ADR.
Yeah, ADR. Oh no, and there wasn't one part that I wasn't there for.
Yeah.
So even the poster design, the back of the video box, I designed, and then it's like trying to get the special features and the commentary tracks and trying to put all the bells and whistles there because the aspect that of course nobody thinks about is that when you shoot a movie, that's hard enough, but then comes the hurdle of how do you get it seen by people, finding distribution, getting it out there. That's something no one there's plenty of movies that are sitting on shelves or played film festivals that you never hear from again.
Correct.
So it's like how do you jockey that film out there?
And this is your baby that you
It's your
put
baby,
the 80 yards in.
It always is, and then you have to be there. And now, so I'm still with it. I'm writing other scripts and working on things, but I'm every day. We hired a PR person promoting this thing, spreading the word on Facebook, doing podcasts like this. Trying to talk it up and advertise and let people know about the film. You can make a great film, but if nobody sees it,
that is exactly kind of what we were talking about today. And I was talking to Zach because tomorrow we're gonna start an actors group, maybe like 6 actors. I have a couple actors, including Zach, and we're gonna work on some material, and put our content on our tapes and everything, shoot it in the studio here, and just work on it amongst each other every week. And you see a lot of musicians, and all your friends who are musicians, they play music. But a lot in the acting world, like we have a lot of friends who have never seen us act. As just coming up, there's a lot of actors who never seen you act, and there's some actors who are big name actors who their friends have never seen them act as well too. So just even to get the exposure, and when we have all these platforms, there's TikTok, there is LinkedIn, there is Facebook, there is everything. I think that we should all put it out there, and a lot of us are just so afraid of. It's very vulnerable to put your talents out there. Yeah.
Well, there's a line I've always loved. I think I heard it in a movie once, but they said they were talking about potential, and this falls into every artist. They said, as long as you never do anything, you always still have it. And I think that's the fear that stops so many people from taking that chance or giving that shot because they're afraid if they fail, what they think is potential, would be gone.
Yeah.
So they don't want to show it or say it or do it, because that's the reality check or whatever. So
yeah, I spoke to a girl and her response was like, "What if my manager see me doing something that's like bad?" I'm like, you know what he's even seeing you doing anything that's good anyway.
Yeah.
So best for me, even if I did a tape that not everybody's gonna like, then sometimes I might do a tape that the right person might see. And I honestly believe that we should just break out to this feeling, and I don't know how it is in the director's world, but for the actor's world, we have this block right now that's like, we just want to keep it within our acting classes.
Yeah, it's sad because I have so many friends in Vegas that were actors before me, or serious actors, and have done plays and are amazing. Like especially my acting class back in Vegas, and I would always wonder in my head, like, why aren't they in LA? Like, what is going on? I never understood it until I went to LA and started understanding, like, oh, they're just afraid. Like they're afraid to put themselves out there, and for me, like, I knew I wasn't as good as them, so I'm just like, just get out there, just go.
It's the fear in like a lot of these small places. Like you could be a big fish in a small pond, or you could be a small fish in a giant ocean. And if you move to New York or LA, you're in a whole different world. And,
Right.
But you have to have a thick skin, and it's a matter of like. But if you're serious and you really want to take a shot at doing it, I've always said, anyone who moves to LA to become an actor or whatever, you have to at least give it 3 years. If you're not giving it 3 years,
Every single person that's been the common time period I've heard from everyone.
You have to at least 3 years, because if you don't, then you're not really giving it a shot. I mean, the overnight sensations are a myth. It's like, once you hit it, you're like, after 20 years, he was an overnight sensation.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's it. So the longer you stay, I've been out here now for over 25 years, plugging away. I've been able to make a lot of movies, but I haven't hit the studio level, and you're never quite where you'd like to be. It's always still a struggle for time and budget, but
our dream is still alive.
But it's still alive, and I prefer the more you do, the better you get.
Right.
So I mean, there's some people that like, look, if I don't have $5 million to make this, I'm not going to make this movie, and they don't make anything for 20 years.
Yeah.
Or actors who are their day job is a waiter, and that's what they do because it's not quite hitting that thing. So. You should just go out for everything, and and then there's good material, bad material, but if you have at least 1 or 2 decent scenes in a movie, that you can use for your reel, do it. Don't be afraid.
You can even just shoot your reel with your homies on a nice camera. You rent a camera, you go to Sammy's. One of these people, there's so many people coming out of USC, UCLA, even if you're in Vegas, one person, and you just project just even Google what a good reel looks like. And you just replicate that, but with your own talents and skills, and you put it out there, and then everyone can find you. It's better than no reel,
right?
Or not even putting it out there.
I've also recommended trying to become friendly with, obviously, casting directors.
Yeah.
There's the one great thing too. If you're a casting director, you can offer, say, could I sit in on the table on the auditions, on the other side, reading against other actors,
right.
Because when you do that, you get to see what other actors do, what's good, what's bad, the mistakes they make. You kind of get it from another point of view, and it can be very helpful for you as an actor. I worked with a few casting directors like that over the years, where they would bring people in, and then if they think there's something right for them, they'd say you should audition for this too. So,
how could this under the table? How could you get an actor without being pushy or pressing? Connect in your eyes? How can an actor connect with maybe a casting director or maybe a director, just so they know who they are?
In LA, I mean, going through proper channels, I guess showcases are sometimes the best thing. You put together showcases and then you add, and then sometimes casting directors do go to these things. I mean, they see people at certain places, and you connect with them, get a card or stay in contact with them. You get emails, you just sort of put it out there. I've always said, although it's harder now, the American film market that takes place in November every year is a great way to network and meet people and talk, because there's a lot of people down there, producers as well as other people. So, certain things like that. I mean, theater there's a big difference between theater in LA and theater in New York. If you want to be a theater actor, LA is probably not the place to do it. It's more like a New York thing, because the prestige is 100% different. I've seen some shows in LA, and I've seen a couple good ones, but a lot of times it's like, this is just not great.
Yeah.
And I used to go to some showcases, and you'd find every now and then someone at those things. But
you found an actor too at showcases?
I've been interested in actor too at showcases. I mean, when you've been doing it long enough and you know so many people, it's easy. But you still put out an ad in LA casting, or there was Now Casting. So now it's all electronic submissions and things like that. The headshot is still the key. If you have the right look for the part, I mean, that's what they're looking before anything else. You know, the training and all the other stuff, you need to have the look. But I always look for actors who have theater background and improv, because comedy, you know, is the hardest thing to do, you know, a lot of times. And if you can do comedy, you can do drama. So I know if I find somebody who understands the comic beats and things like that, you can easily go back and forth. Whereas a dramatic actor doesn't necessarily do comedy great. You know, that's a harder thing to teach, is the timing of comedy. So that's one of the things. And then also theater, because you learn to pronunciate and you know, project. And that's a lot of times, if people come from television or soaps and they mumble everything, you can't hear it. And you know, I love the film in the 40s, you know, Cary Grant movies, and you know, Howard Hawks, and you know, they talked at a clip and you can hear every word, and it's very precise, and it's fast. And I tend to write kind of banter, fast dialogue in my script, so I look for that kind of pacing. And there's an energy to that kind of thing. And I think when you see Art of the Dead and a lot of my other films, you'll see that energy. Things
I'm making notes right now.
Move.
I'm making notes right now. Zach, if I know you started your journey, you moved from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, and you had this feature film, and you know, it's amazing to just have something that you could hold as, I was in this, you know, like, this is history right here,
rookie
right?
card.
Yeah, no, but it's history. It's a great rookie card to have, right?
Yeah,
that's an A-list. That's a gold star rookie card to have.
Yeah.
But
Maybe you're all in the first movie.
Yeah. But what advice you would have for people, you know, from Las Vegas or from different parts of America, and they're not in Los Angeles yet, not in New York, and they're chasing this dream just as you are on this dream with me as well. What advice you would have for people? What's the first like 5 things that come to mind?
Well, you're not, just keep going to acting class wherever you live. Keep going. That's a huge thing. Like, keep working on it. Save money. You know, save your money. Start saving for when you're ready to make that move. That's what I was doing the whole time for at least 2 years when I started doing class. I had no idea when I was going to go, but I just started saving for when it's going to happen. And then also, I mean, coming from small towns and coming to a big city, I think mental health is a huge thing, and I think it's you got to be ready. You know, you got to be pretty solid, because when you're by yourself, you don't really have somebody to talk to. You know, it becomes tough. I mean, my first I think few months were pretty tough. Just being by myself. I mean, I just broke up with my girlfriend too at the same time, so it was kind of like
double whammy.
Yeah, you know, but
it happens though.
It happens, yeah, and you get through it. I mean, for me, I meditate. I do a lot of self-development books, that I listen to or read, and I think those help me as an actor as well, because it's helped me to find myself. I don't think I've even fully. We're always still finding ourselves, right? Or learning new things about ourselves. So I think being conscious of that and being aware of that is huge as an actor.
Right.
So
I'd say I agree. You need to find a support system. It's if you come out here without it. When I first moved to California, I had a few actor friends who were in my movie come out first. So I had been coming out and visiting a few times. So I met filmmakers and a group that I could hang out with, which I think is very important, because you need a reality check too. You need people who will give you a straight answer, because this town will kill you with compliments. There was the biggest difference, and this was great before I moved here. There was an article in the paper, and it said the difference between LA and New York. Can you curse on this thing?
Yeah, you can say. Yeah, you can curse.
So the line was, in LA, in New York they say yes, in LA they say maybe. In New York, they say no. In LA, they say maybe. In LA, they say, thank you for bringing that to our attention. In New York, they say, oh shit. And that's the difference. There's a directness. You can get an answer,
right,
but you don't get it here, because nobody wants to give you their opinion, because nobody's confident enough until everybody else gives their opinion, because they don't want to look bad or good. So you get this kind of,
PC.
like a PC kind of, and then behind your back, they say all the real things about you.
Correct.
So you need to find people that will set you straight and say, this was good, this was bad, and give you, real criticism, because you could just sort of flounder around out here,
waste time and money.
And time, all the time.
Yeah.
And there's so many scam, acting things that, are trying to get actors money with headshots.
This is exactly why I put this podcast together for actors, and this not only actors, because I'm going to ask you about directors soon, but just actors in general, because there are a lot of scams, as you just said, and I'm bringing on professionals and people working in the industry to just give their piece of advice so that it would help somebody instead of them spending $600 on headshots when at that time they don't even know if they're getting into acting and they spend all that money before they even just get like 2 basic headshots first. And you can land a feature film, you never know, so probably your headshot probably didn't cost you $600 to get to book this job, so I know to you, Rolfe, for aspiring directors or someone in college right now, USC, UCLA, all those schools per se, what advice do you have for those people coming up and about their techniques while directing a feature film? Because it's like, as you said, you just explained so long and so much time you put on there. I don't know if anyone knows how much hard work it takes to do what you did. So if you could just give some advice and talk about it.
I knew pretty young that I wanted to be in film. I mean, by 14, I got a video camera and I was shooting home movies, and I was very tunnel vision dedicated to this thing. I started, my father, who was a film editor, mostly documentaries, but he got me on a few sets as a PA, which I think is great. You need to get on movie sets. There's a big difference, at least there was, between the academic world and the professional world. And you can take courses and read books and all that stuff, but that does not really prepare you at all for it. You need to be out on the set, see how it works, see how the relationships and all the positions are. And I did that. I worked on craft service. I was a production assistant on many low-budget films. I did some grips and gaffers for Trauma Entertainment back in New York. So I was doing all this before I even went to college. I was 16. I was doing the summers, spending my summers, and I was also shooting my own home movies. And you learn more by doing your own movie than by anything. You'll learn 1,000% times more, by actually doing something. So back then, though, I mean, we had video cameras. Now the technology's gotten, people shoot on cell phones. Now you can make a movie, you can make a short, you can do anything, but it's better to do something than just to talk about doing something.
Correct.
That's the big thing, that people are in development, but they don't actually do it. So you just have to keep doing, and you're going to learn the more you do, and you'll meet more people. So you just got to get out there, because if you're really just reading books, watching movies, reading scripts are helpful, but you got to have first-hand experience. And the teacher in a class won't really, if they give you the equipment, that's the best thing about like USC, and you get equipment and you meet people, you go out and you shoot something, but it's just the theoretical theories of the making movies it's not the same. I took writing courses and they were helpful, little writing courses here and there, but there's no end-all rule of what works. Everyone writes in a different process. Some people can write, John Hughes wrote Breakfast Club in 5 days. Paul Scheider wrote Taxi Driver in a weekend. And, there's many courses that say it'll take you at least 1 year to write a good script, that's ready to show people. It's like, well, yes, and but a lot of times you'll be writing in your head and then you can just, vomit up the whole thing overnight. I've always been a very fast writer, which just comes naturally. So I've written a lot of scripts and I jump around. But there's that's like, this is right, this is wrong.
Correct.
So you just have to do it.
I think it's a big thing with not judging yourself with your writing, right? And as an actor, people do judge themselves, and I think that's what blocks them from doing things, because they're afraid that it's going to be awful instead of just doing and going through the process. And if it's bad, it's bad. Now you're going to get better the next time you make another one.
And finish everything you start. That's always been a lot of times people, especially with writing, is they start a script and they write 10 or 15 pages, and then they go back and they rewrite it, and then they just stop. And they can't get through it. It's like barrel through. At one point you're going to hate it, you always do, but get to the end, no matter what you're doing, because also if you want to be professional and you need to be trusted with money from a producer, they need to know that you can give them a product.
Yeah.
So if it's a short film, if it's a feature, if it's a script, if it's whatever, you got to finish it, reach the end, because it'll be a great practice for yourself, and it shows the dedication, because that's what the difference between a hobby and a profession.
Yeah. Nice. Well, this podcast is called 1,000 Failures, and
there you go.
and I believe that every failure that we get just pushes us one step closer to success. So, Rolfe, just from your experience and your ups and downs, what has your downs taught you?
Well, you have to be. Okay, so first you have to be happy with what you're doing. You you're going to spend whatever time it's going to take to do a film, a year, 2 years, or whatever you're making. If you don't like what you're doing, and at the end, let's say, you're doing something because you think it's going to be successful, or you're just using it for something else, but you don't particularly like it, and then it's not successful, and you don't like it, then you really feel like you just wasted all your time and energy on something that you don't even want to watch or look at. So, as yourself, you have to be satisfied with what you're doing. I mean, you can take jobs for money. I mean, there's things everyone has to do something that might not be their favorite thing, but you find the way that you like it, or what you can get out of it, or the plus points for it to make it worthwhile for you, and you treat it as a learning experience anyway. But you got to be satisfied. So satisfy yourself first. Then when it comes to commerciality, the one rule about California, which is true, is that nobody knows anything. That everyone can predict, but if they did, every movie would be a hit. So nobody knows what's going to be a hit, what's going to be not. You don't know when the movie's going to open, or how it's going to open, or if there's something that's going to happen in the world that suddenly takes the emphasis off your movie, so the timing is wrong. I mean, I've had that. I mean, I've got hundreds of horror stories doing this for a long time. But my first film, I made a horror comedy when I was 20 years old when I did my first movie, so I was pretty young, and it turned out to actually become a cult classic over the years called "There's Nothing Out There." It just got released on Blu-ray this year, 30th anniversary. Amazing.
Congrats.
But when we opened the film up, I mean, it was a comedy horror film. So first off, you get it's too funny to be scary, it's too scary to be funny. We don't know what it is. Whenever you're trying to cross genres, it's that's confusing, so people don't get it. Then we got enough press, we got some good reviews, we played film festivals, finally got it released for a week in New York City in January during the blizzard and a Super Bowl Sunday. And then we moved to California, and we were playing midnights in April of '92, building up an audience, and then the LA riots happened.
Oh, wow.
And there was a curfew over the town, no midnight showings, and that was the end of that. So you're like, well, that sucks, but this is what happens. I mean, and the movie still managed to get on HBO and get out there and find an audience, and then 30 years later, people are still talking about this movie. It was slow in the coming, but after 30 years, people appreciate it and it lives.
Nice.
So you're in it for the long haul, kind of. You got to be like, and there's so many. If you go back to the examples, the two famous films, the two films that bombed when they came out were The Wizard of Oz and It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
They did not make money. The critics didn't like them. They thought Wonderful Life was sappy and too, things. And Frank Capra, who directed the movie, went to Jimmy Stewart and said, well, look, it's a good film. I know it's a good film. One day they'll realize it's a good film. And now, of course, it's one of the most famous films of all time. So, don't be so persuaded by people say, be confident in yourself. You have to have an ego and know what you did is good and be proud of what it is, because people love to knock you down and make you feel like a failure and you're making the wrong mistakes and stuff like that. But you have to stick to your guns, remember what your vision was in the first place, and you just barrel through that, and you've got to take the rejection in stride. If you're too sensitive, you'll be destroyed, in this town. And people love to build you up to knock you down. That's how this world works.
Yeah, well said. Zach?
Mm-hmm. What?
how do you follow that up? How's your feelings toward you, and then tell us where we could find this film and where my listeners could all find this
Tell us
film.
about me. What was the first part?
Just talk a little bit about how your failures got you and helped you up in today's world.
In today's world, how I became an actor, or how I became...
Just how all the failures your failures.
Failures.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm doing like that. Sorry. All my failures. Yeah. My story is different. I played hockey and golf growing up. I played on the golf team for St. Francis College, and just didn't really find my place. Obviously, not pro with that. Did well though, and got my scholarship and everything. And then after, didn't know what I wanted to do after college. Honestly, moved back to Vegas, started doing sales in financing mortgages.
Yeah.
And after a few years of that, I realized I hated it. I started losing myself, honestly. I wasn't happy anymore. I was very irritable. It was just a lot of stuff was going on.
Right.
Then like a big life-changing event happened for me, and I decided I realized that I need to stop this, what I'm doing. All the bad habits and not wanting to finance really for the long run. It's my job, right now still as an assistant, but I finally made the jump to go to acting class and see if I really like that, because my whole life I went to I did acting class in school, as electives and everything in high school, and then I got a minor in communications, and I pretty much did all the acting classes for that. So I always flirted with the idea of being an actor. I always loved Jim Carrey growing up. I loved how much of a goofball he is, and in real life, you know me, and I'm comfortable around you. I'm a complete goofball, and I love to have fun. So when I finally made that jump, I just told myself, you're not going to become famous overnight, because that's, I think, what everyone thinks of when they're an actor. Like, they don't realize how long it's going to be.
Right, process.
And I'm like, I'm not even in LA, So for 2 years, solid 2 years, I'm going to study this. I'm going to study. I'm going to put all my heart into it. I had a great coach named Adam Hill out in Las Vegas. He's an older man, also taught by Stella Adler herself, a theater, big stage actor back in the day. And he just taught me all just the organic elements of acting, So I just was really slow with me, how to talk to me and tell me what I need to hear in order to become the actor that I'm today. And then once I got the movie, that was my big jump to come over here, and now we're here in hustling.
Journey.
Yeah, it's the journey.
So tell us where we could find Art of Dead.
You can find Art of the Dead at your local Walmart, and for what, $9.96 too.
Yes,
it's
about $10.
Yeah, it's cheap. Like it's a parking ticket. So yeah, you can find it at Walmart, or you can also rent and buy it on Amazon Prime.
Everyone has Amazon Prime.
Everyone has Amazon. If you don't have Amazon, I don't know
So
where you're
log
going.
on right now.
Oh yeah, you watch it. Streaming on a lot of sites.
It's streaming right
streams
now. Art of the Dead, and you would see the directing by Rolfe, and some acting by Zach, and some famous faces. So
yeah,
thanks guys.
yes,
It's been awesome and
thanks for having us.
amazing. Good pieces of wisdom.
Oh, thanks.
And this is
Yes.
yours.
Yeah.
Oh no! No, I am still purchasing it. That's why I support everybody who I know. So
Yeah.
this is probably just gonna
It's
stay
another
here.
copy you can give to somebody else
This
if you
is
want.
probably gonna stay here, or just stay around on the wall. So
There you
thank
go.
you guys.
The last
you.
thing I'll say though is with the journey is that remember to enjoy the journey.
Oh,
Yeah.
Everyone's always like the final result going to it, and they don't enjoy the journey. If you don't enjoy the journey,
What's the point?
you may not ever get to where you want to go on the thing. So if you're not enjoying the journey, you
Yeah.
could say I wasted everything.
Exactly.
So you got to stop and smell the roses.
Yeah.
This man just shooting our wisdom.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Awesome. Take care. Yeah. Sweet.